I always love me some good solid budget mechanical keyboards, as mechs are expensive, and I believe that these should get as much attention as the others because they're a real viable option for a lot of people. This one in particular is probably one of the cheapest mechs you can get locally in Australia, so yeah, keep that in mind. Thanks to mwave.com.au for providing this keyboard for review and for their continued support. Opening up the box, we have a quick start guide. We then have 4 extra key switches, which tells us that this is Hotswappable, and then the keyboard itself. And first impressions in the hands is great. It's packing some solid weight, coming in at about 950 grams, so just under a kilo, and there's minimal flex, feeling quite solid and rigid, and that's because that it has a steel mounting plate. Normally, if you were to have a floating key design such as this, which exposes the key switches from the side, we would have an aluminium plate instead, which is a very common trait of many budget mechs. The steel has this smooth dark grey finish which doesn't pick up any fingerprints, and I personally really like it. The rest of the case is made from plastic with a slightly aggressive design that won't be for everyone, but the top stays relatively clean with minimal branding as well. On the bottom we have a couple of flat rubber feet, as well as 2 flip-up feet that are rubber tipped to keep it steady on the desk. Unfortunately, we have a non-removable USB cable, so that's annoying, but it does have cable routing channels and also has a strap and an attached cap. And finally, a plastic ring keycap puller on the bottom, which is pretty cool, and it sits in there quite nicely, so it shouldn't fall out. The keycaps actually look pretty decent for backlit keycaps. The font or typeface itself is quite clean, but they are thickish and have some gaps and whatnot, but they're not the worst. And they have a nice matte look to them as well, being slightly textured. They're made from pretty thin 1mm ABS plastic, but they are double shot, so the legends are another piece of plastic and will never fade away. The Phantom does have a completely standard ANSI layout though, so replacing keycaps is super easy. The Phantom comes in both 10 keyless and full-size form factors, so if you really need a numpad, then grab the full-sized one, but honestly the TKL is a great size which gives us more space on our desk for our mouse and is just more comfortable to use. Being a budget keyboard, it's pretty cool to have legit RGB backlighting. One thing you have to remember about RGB lighting is that it doesn't need to be always blazing all the different colors. In my eyes, it gives you the flexibility to choose what color you want your backlighting to be. So by pressing FN and this RGB key, we can actually choose what color we want. So if you just want a simple white, then you can choose that. Or if you want pink, you can do that as well. And then of course we have all the other effects and patterns and all that, which are controlled by the nav cluster keys and the arrow keys. But yeah, it is legit RGB lighting rather than just limited colors, so the transitions are nice and smooth. We can also do that in their software that you can download from their website, which is another impressive thing to have on a budget mech. So first of all, we have 3 different profiles that we can save stuff to. So again, we have the lighting with all the effects and colors, which works perfectly well and is all applied in real time, which is nice. The speed settings are a bit iffy, so I prefer just to do that on board. And then we have the key customizability, but to use this we have to exit the LED lighting editing mode. So we can press a key and we can assign a new key to it, or a macro that you can record, or assign a secondary function to it. So I can assign FN plus escape to be mute and it will do just that. It doesn't have the greatest customizability, but this makes it very simple and easy to use. So not a bad piece of software, as it does exactly what it has to do. The Phantom is available in our Temu key switches, however the Phantom Elite is available with Gatoron and Kale box key switches, of course at a higher price as well. I have our Temu Browns in mind, which are just a clone of the Cherry MX Browns, but they're nice switches and honestly you won't find much of a difference between the two. This is also available in our Temu Blue for clicky and red for linear. The typing experience is solid, the stabs aren't too bad as well. There is still some rattle, but they did lube up the wire a bit, so yeah, not bad and above average for budget boards. But another big feature of this keyboard is that we can pull out the key switches with the included key switch puller because we have some Hotswappable sockets in here. We do have the extra 4 key switches included, but they're still the same switch. Last video I checked out the Drevo Typing V2 keyboard and a couple of people said that it looked very similar to this, and yeah, we have the same situation with the hot swap feature. So basically it's pretty much just for our Temu key switches. This is mainly because of the pins being slightly thinner than others, and you also need to have the gap for the SMD RGB LED, in which not all switches have. So for the most part, Cherry MX, Gatoron, Kale, etc. they won't fit unless you modify the pins somehow, just because the sockets are super tight. However, the Temu Ice key switches will make some great replacements. So yeah, not the best, but it's still much better than not having the option at all. To open up the keyboard, there's a couple of Phillips head screws on the top plate, and you can just pry it open. The bottom plastic shell is very simple, there's not much reinforcement there, but when screwed onto the plate, it's all good. Said plate is made from 1.5mm steel. This is what gives the keyboard its solid weight and rigidity. Again, most keyboards like this will just have an aluminium plate which is lighter and not as rigid, so it's really nice to have steel here. And the PCB is clean and all, but the main difference is that we have the sockets that the switch pins go into. So if you wanted to, you could desolder these sockets and put in other switches, but honestly there's no real point. Overall, I'm very happy with this keyboard. The price truly does play a big role in how I perceive this keyboard. Like seriously, it has a good solid build with the steel plate. It has true RGB backlighting which is customizable with software as well. It has hot swappable key switches, albeit it's limited to Temu, but still great. It has double shot keycaps in a standard ANSI layout. The design is not for me personally, but it's relatively simple and should fit in most environments. Many people may turn away from our Temu switches if they didn't know better, but honestly they're absolutely fine in regards to feel and durability. I know I'm sounding overwhelmingly positive, but I really am impressed at this price for the package that you get. This is like $50 in the US, and honestly at this price point, it's a very difficult keyboard to beat and is definitely one beast of a budget board. And don't forget, this is also available in the full size version if you need that numpad. Thanks again to mwave.com.au for providing this keyboard for review, and I'll chuck the link in the description below.